All right, so to conclude my examination of the case study, where I left off here, the need for additional administrative personnel becomes glaringly clear in this case as this administrator, Mr. Stevens, is expected to rely on volunteers to do one of the most important things in terms of collecting money. And he doesn't have any other set of eyes in the administrative team to help him out with that. So additional assistance here would be very helpful. All right, our final section we're going to look at is reflection on Standard 8. And component 1, how to use a school leader to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of operational procedures at the school and district level, and issues relating to fiscal operations and management. First of all, utilizing one gate for all events like the basketball game discussed in this issue. To consolidate resources, as talked about, to have multiple individuals collecting money and never let one person be alone with the funds would be an important step to take. Part 2, ensure volunteers operate in pairs at all times, at least. You want to, for their own protection and the school's protection. That's always a good idea. 3, utilize technology to overcome some of the issues, such as lack of supervision and torn tickets, through the use of video recording of gates, anywhere money's being handled, a concession stand. It's always a good idea. And then also perhaps some kind of e-ticket where parents and patrons could buy tickets online and then use their cell phones to redeem that ticket at the gate of the event. It would completely eliminate the issue of torn tickets, collecting tickets by hand, things like that, or even the handling of cash if it was purchased with a credit card. So that's something to investigate in the future. Coordinating the efforts to resolve issues such as this with supervisor and legal personnel from district office. So bring in resources from central office and explain the issue to them, get their feedback on how it can be improved, and maybe they'll see the importance of having additional administrative personnel in your building or technology they could help you out with. Finally here, form a leadership committee within the school, comprised of department chairs, perhaps, depending on how your school is organized, and then rotate supervisory responsibility with those individuals for football games, basketball games, things like that. We don't want to ask too much of those staff members because they are teachers most of the time, but to rotate that kind of responsibility is something to consider, and it might be something some of them are looking for. So that would be one option. Component 2, how can you demonstrate a commitment to stakeholders and involving them in the management process? Perhaps form a PTA member committee. You can include central office personnel and staff from the building on that committee to try and establish new guidelines for ticket collection, what to do in the case of torn tickets, and maybe any changes you need to make to reconciliation, and how to resolve these kind of issues in the future. That way it's not the administrator dictating policy, it is a community decision, and that's always a better route to go for most issues. Part 2 of this here, work with the PTA to establish a fund for individual activities. Like in this particular scenario, the cheerleading event this girl wanted to attend, maybe the PTA could set up specific fundraisers for individual activities like this, where a student has performed to a level where they stand out and they're being rewarded for that. As long as those funds are collected, when they're collected, it's made clear that these funds are for individual purposes. It's not to benefit the entire school. As long as we're upfront about where the funds are going, I believe that might be something that can be accomplished. But again, you'd always want to check with district policy and supervisors to make sure. Step 3, establish an administrative internship program for teachers working on their principal license. This could be a way to solve the lack of administrative personnel issue. Most buildings have teachers that aspire to become administrators, and this would be a way for them to gain experience and for you to find a cheap source of additional administrative supervision. So that is something to consider. And finally here, component 3, as a school leader, how do you ensure organizational systems are regularly monitored and modified and problem-solving skills are used? The use of a leadership committee with staff members and district personnel is one way to do that. This way you can do a debrief, you can look at things that have happened, things that might happen even, and come up with solutions to it. To re-examine policies and procedures in an ongoing fashion is always a good thing. You can bring in more perspectives that way and find better solutions. Part 2 here, meet regularly with other district building leaders to reflect on common issues and find common solutions. In our scenario, even though this administrator was on his own in the building, he surely had a peer at the high school level and at the elementary level that he could meet with and bounce ideas off of. So that would be 2 sources of assistance that he could use or she could use to get ideas, to find solutions to problems. Part 3 here, develop a system of administrative assistance with high school and elementary principals to share duties in a way that assists all. The high school and middle school levels, again, tapping those elementary and high school level resources, even if there's only one administrator in those 2 buildings as well, you as a group of 3 could work together to assist where needed. At the high school and middle school level with after-school events, the principal from the high school could come down and help you at some events, and you could go and help him at others. And same thing could be said at the elementary level. There are things I'm sure they need assistance with that you could work with them on. So this concludes my analysis of the case study. Thank you.